Liberty Nation, and with me today is Scott Cosenza. Scott has some Second Amendment news that's going on Capitol Hill this week. Scott, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, Lisa. In the House this week, the Congress will vote on the National Right to Carry Reciprocity Act, and what this legislation would do would be allow any person to carry in a state other than their own as long as they had a license or permit to carry in their home state. Much like a driver's license, you have a driver's license in the state where you reside, I presume, and then you're allowed to drive in any of the 50 states without making special contact. If, for instance, tomorrow you found yourself in California and wanted to drive there, you wouldn't have to ask for special permission to drive because you're not a California resident. That's currently what we have now with gun licensure. If a person lives in one state and is licensed or permitted to carry a firearm in that state, there's no guarantee that they will be able to carry in a neighboring state, and it may in fact be a very serious crime for them to do so. It may be a felony. So this legislation basically takes care of all that and makes it sort of akin to a driver's license.
Okay, so it seems to me this is pretty positive news. Then why are some conservatives and libertarians against this?
The opposition to this bill that comes from sides of the aisle that we wouldn't consider hostile to firearms rights or gun owners, and so that's a little atypical. That comes from groups that see this as basically leading to a Trojan horse, whereby instead of having a federal system, which we do now, which is that the people who live in Wyoming have liberal gun rights and people who live in California do not, and presumably that's the way the people of those states want it. And they fear that if we defederalize this system and make it a national system, what we're then doing is basically ceding the governance to, and they use for as example, education policy in this country, whereas so much of that is now decided by the federal bureaucracy and the federal courts instead of at the state and local level, which is where they think the maximum freedom lies. And that's why they oppose this legislation.
So essentially, what is going on with the legislation on Capitol Hill this week?
This week, the House is going to vote on the measure, and Republican leadership has decided to combine this legislation with another piece of gun law legislation, which is the Fix NICS Act. And NICS stands for the National Instant Background Check System, okay? And that's if a gun purchaser, it was mandated by the Brady bill, by the way, and if a gun purchaser goes to purchase a gun, they submit their identification, and then the gun seller contacts the FBI, which runs the NICS system, and runs their information through a database, which is then supposed to return any hits if they are forbidden because of a felony conviction or potential psychological issues from owning a firearm. So the Fix NICS bill is generally hostile to gun rights and opposed by gun rights proponents, but the House Republican leadership has sought fit to join the bills, and they will be voted on as one legislation. Both will pass or both will fail.
How are gun rights proponents reacting to these pieces of legislation being merged?
They're not happy about it, Lisa. The Senate version of the Fix NICS bill was co-sponsored by Charles Schumer and I think either Dianne Feinstein or Nancy Pelosi. Either one are sort of kryptonite to gun rights proponents. So there's a lot of trepidation and second guessing about whether the legislation should be supported. I can tell you though that I have received a communication from the Virginia Citizens Defense League, which is perhaps the leading state-level guns rights groups, and they have said that they think that the total package is actually a net plus and a gain to Americans and to gun owners, and they will support the legislation going forward. They think that the gain of national reciprocity and right to carry is well worth the sort of vinegar of what the Fix NICS bill will add.
Let me ask this. You're a big Second Amendment guy. What is your opinion on this legislation?
Well, that's the hot seat for sure. It is a tough call, Lisa. I fear that we've come so far down the line of federalization of our laws that the right thing to do is to kind of push for this, to vote in favor of it. If I were a member of Congress, I think I'd have to wait until the moment the vote was cast to decide which way I would go. I will say that, recognizing the right to carry, though, and allowing people to carry is a great thing for Americans. And, one thing I will say about these, we hear about all these sexual assaults that are going on. Well, one of the things that people on the right say to women is, keep a gun in your purse, and then if some creep, thinks he's going to sexually assault you, well, he's got another thing coming. So people being able to defend themselves and have practical defense, which is what a handgun is. It's a practical defense. I think is usually always a good thing.
Lisa Donner here with Scott Cosenza. Make sure to check in with libertynation.com for all things Second Amendment. And this is LNTV.
Keep your powder dry.